Okay, the date is 6/3/2024. I'm the wizard Tim, and this is a currently unnamed palette swap slash clone engine podcast. This pilot will be recorded with the aid of the amazing Isisera.
Hello. I got a little preview of our potential topics, and there may be some characters discussed that would be very fascinating to explore on. And joining us is Oblivion. How are you doing today, Oblivion?
I'm doing good from the land of Canada itself. Good old White North, right here to talk about some Marvel and Palette Swap.
Do you play with the moose, or are they too good at the game?
Nah, they too good. They wipe the floor with me every time. Can't beat them.
I
Maple
wonder
syrup
what
flavored moose.
I wonder what the moose ecosystem for play is, because it's always fascinating when characters come up in certain regions. I wonder if certain species, if there was like a moose character, would moose play Spencer or something? I feel like they might. They have that like
Spencer
ugly
would be
event.
the play, yes. They love to ram stuff, so Spencer would be up there on the moose tier list.
The moose tier list for modded Marvel may have some of that orange Hulk in there.
Orange Hulk, Ashura, the whole shebang. I'd love to see that though. Mooses playing Marvel.
Make no assumption they can't. They can do almost everything else, it seems, including
Yeah.
swim.
I mean, I've seen some open doors.
Yikes.
It's terrifying.
Open without destroying, or open
Oh yeah, no,
through
just open
decimating
it
the door?
without
Oh, okay.
destroying. Just opening it, like using their hooves to open it, like smart things, like smart little bastards. Like no, close it, please. At
Well
least they
done.
can't get in. Their antlers are too big. That's the one good part.
We're going to be moving on to the first topic in the docket. We have what's new. And I think it's pretty easy to say because they're a huge, huge thing right now in Ballot Swap. I'm talking about Onslaught.
He tiny. What you mean? He's small.
He's big enough that, along with being the tallest character in the entire game, he forced us to go outside the range of standard Marvel as the first character with 1.3 million health, going over that Thor baseline of 1.25. How do y'all feel about that?
That's a lot of health to take down. I did not even know. I thought he was 1.25 as well.
I think it's interesting. I think he's so big, he cannot avoid things. Morgan fireballs, busters. In a neutral heavy situation, that gives him a fairly big weakness, but at the same time, against certain combo characters, it's really nice to have that much extra insurance.
Just to make sure. I mean,
Yeah.
you can probably get shimmied a lot, or like chicken block, because you're so big. I haven't really messed with his crouching animation, but I'm pretty sure you can get instant overhead across the damn world. Big boy problems.
His crouching animation is not that much bigger than like a Sentinel or a Hulk. His standing is substantially larger, so while you're trying to move around and dash and things like that, especially as a character who doesn't get to crouch cancel their dash since he has a Dormammu style dash, you do get caught out of a lot of types of movement with projectiles. But Shuma did a really good job of building in tools to make it so even though he has this challenge, he has ways around it. His quarter circle back media or is a projectile counter that teleports you to your opponent, so it'll help you get in around things. While the quarter circle back heavy projectile counter actually reflects things, so if it's something like a Buster or whatever, being able to have a reflector for Buster is incredibly valuable.
No U button.
Yes, and along with that, he has the teleports built in as well. They're Dormammu style teleports, which are very strong, but he doesn't really have that flight mode that Dormammu uses to take advantage of the movement afterwards. So he has some mobility, but it is a little bit complex and clunky to handle.
Yeah, he's not just big character but fast. He has like complex movement, which is pretty fun to play with.
And the big thing also is that a lot of the fight characters in this game are super fast, super agile, and he lumbers, but God, he puts up what I describe as the aerial fortress, where if you're not careful, you're going to run straight into his giant normals when he's airborne.
Hair Evie having armor too, I believe. It's just big old buttons. You better be ready.
Yes, indeed. I feel like it's notable that all of his heavy buttons are substantially slower than all of the other characters' heavy buttons in the game, but they come with the benefit of armor, and the most impactful of this is his air heavy, because air armor is something that Capcom aiding, they were very cautious about putting that in this game. Only in base game Thor is the source of having air armor, but with Onslaught, he has a way to get access to his air armor, cover a large portion of the screen, and then also cancel out the recovery by going for a super jump into air dash heavy H. Then he gets his armor that'll protect him, and if he happens to collide with anything, leads into a full combo off of ground bounce, doesn't take anything to confirm, and if they block it, he's at advantage and can start to use it to enforce chip or do a mix up with an assist, all kinds of good stuff.
He also has like surprisingly it's not like the most optimized keep away out there, but it works. The drones, the big sentinel on the ground is surprisingly short recovery, so you can actually mess people with it because he can go short sentinel into teleport with an assist. And then when the assist starts to hit, you can dash on the other side. He got like mix up for days, even though he's a big character. He's just like very competent at it, which I was surprised about when I started messing with him.
I think also just like where do we think he's going? Because I think like his assists are better than I was guessing, and I mean, I wonder how X Factor does for him because it's a little hard to figure out what assist I'd pair with him as the straight point.
I've been enjoying running him with Gloria and Captain Marvel. I feel that, like every character in the game, having a horizontal ground control assist helps him a lot, but he's one of the characters that, like, every character needs that in order to participate, but Onslaught has more tools for leveraging it than the majority of the cast. The Sentinels that Oblivion was mentioning earlier are really effective because they don't go away when you hit Onslaught the way they would if it was a Sentinel that was sending the drones. And because of that, he has things that will go on screen and combo break to keep him safe. And he's largely able to take those trades as a character that has 1.3 million health. So even if he doesn't get a confirmation off of it, it ends up being really powerful to have these tools that'll fill the screen with some nonsense that characters need to get through.
I mean, it's also I feel like this goes on a lot in Marvel community that we have some egregious tool for a character, and the response is he needs it. But I feel like is this the first time we've seen a character where oh his projectiles don't go away or this, and they actually need it?
Um, I think it's fine for him to have it. In general, the majority of projectiles in base game do not go away when the point character is hit. They make exceptions for certain things that have properties that would be problematic. The drones is one of the things that does go away. I think largely because it's summoned not from Sentinel as the spawn point, and because of that, it allows the screen to be controlled around Sentinel while Sentinel is potentially being hit, so they wanted to leave that out. But Sentinel has a lot of tools that Onslaught doesn't. Having access to hard drive in the air is so potent for Sentinel, and Onslaught, that is one of the challenges with Onslaught actually, is once you're in the air, you kind of need to commit to things. The options that you have in the air are his normals, but his normals are all pretty high commitment, and then he doesn't have a flight mode to just zoom around up there. You have access to the hypergrav and Tempest special. Both of these hypergrab's lower commitment and targets more places, but Tempest, if you accidentally get it while going for like air dash down forward S or something, is the worst possible thing to get as an accidental tool because there's no supers to cancel into in the air, and it takes maybe 2 to 3 Marvel seconds. I may be hyperbolizing, but I think this is accurate. 2 to 3 Marvel seconds for him to actually just do the entirety of Tempest and then go all the way back to the ground. Because it's like a Taskmaster arrows where he guard breaks himself for doing it. So it's the worst possible thing when you're trying to move around in S and you get the Tempest instead.
Yeah, I think that's what I like about Onslaught that Shuma did. Basically, he's like really good on the ground, has air option, but you can't just go ham with it. You can just say, I'm gonna stay in the air, press all these buttons, and then go back to the ground and call all these drones. There's actual strength and weaknesses which are apparent and somewhat make sense. I'm not too familiar with Onslaught from like I haven't read the comics in way too long. But that's what I like about it when I mess with it, playing with against my friends and like doing a bunch of games. Like, oh, he's really good on the ground, but in the air, if you whiff your buttons, you are going to pound town. Like you will pay for that. I just love seeing that.
I think like situationally, we're just looking at also a character where like his meter management is definitely going to be a lot tighter, as he can be a bit harder if you're not getting all of your specials linking into each other to just keep building bar. There are definitely times where I feel like they're running away from you and you're still in the advantage winning state, but no bar can be found because if you're not connecting specials and it's a little hard to just keep swinging normals, you might be bottoming out. But I mean, I feel like maybe a good assist will probably rectify that a lot.
Can confirm the assist that, along with running a beam assist with him, which I had been noting is good for. He has drones he could set up, he has teleports, he has air dashes, all of this. But I've been running him with a round trip assist, which builds tons of meter on block or on hit, but also lets him get his tri jump magnetic blast multiple times in a block string. You get somewhere in between like 2 to 5, depending on how precise your timing is and when the first blast hits in relation to round trip coming out. But with that, you build a very substantial amount of a bar and are at advantage afterwards, and do I think around like 170k chip, which is very substantial for some characters. So being able to get in there with tools that extend his ability to do block strings is incredibly fortunate for him, because he doesn't have any type of low commitment special to go to. All of the things he goes to are either have startup or have commitment. So having an assist that could come out pretty quickly and get him frame advantage back is really effective for Onslaught. Oblivion, do you have some thoughts?
Yeah, I also think that a slow projectile assist is very beneficial to him. Like, let's say Charlie Sonic Boom. Maybe I'm not sure about Gal because I know I've tried with Charlie, and you can get the boom. People have to somewhat respect the boom because it will drop their combos if they don't instantly launch you. So you can go in for try dash light, go in there back and back forward with the boom covering you. So it lets you like do more overhead setups and other stuff. A beam assist or like Shadow Lady missiles are really good too. Just something that allows them to either get in or abuse is like flight potential.
And I just want to quickly interject one thing because this is big for our listeners. The current state of Onslaught is he is a currently tournament playable beta character, which means anything and everything we are talking about may be subject to major change as the amazing modder Shuma continues to tweak this character. So a big part of like why we want to come in and try playing this character now and giving your feedback to Shuma in available avenues where they want it is you have the ability to potentially change, and things like we comment about being different now may very much be the byproduct of how people play him also. So if you want, consider trying him in bracket as well as labbing him a bit and sending clips to either the EX Discord, or also we don't mind them in Kevin Ha's Avengers Discord. And sorry, I was interrupting. Isisera?
Oh no, you had started before me. All is good. I was just going to say that about Onslaught and certain assists. I feel that since he commits very heavily to things, being able to get back into advantage again is very helpful for him, because he has a strong division of tools. Air Dash S is plus on block and does chip and leaves him in a favorable situation because the pushback doesn't affect him. Unlike a lot of the time when you do an air dash normal with Onslaught, it's going to push back to some degree because that's what happens when you hit people. But because Air Dash S is a projectile, he doesn't have that pushback, and you have much more control over where you end up. So it's really important for learning how to continue with strings, I feel. And I agree with you that when Shuma or how Shuma's been addressing these characters, they've been very involved in both the competitive scene and have also been very eager to make positive change and adjustments based on feedback. So I think that being able to like put out your play experiences and see what are the things that are going well and going challenging with Onslaught is a good thing. I'm currently not sure exactly what his overall power level is within the meta. I know that he is fun to play and has lots of interesting properties. But what are some of your thoughts, Wizard Tim?
The relevance of himself in the meta, I'm not going to make any major decisions until I get to see people play them in bracket, but there is one part I can talk about. A big thing about mod characters is they are, in fact, pieces of art. Like, these are people manipulating the engine with their own visions and concepts. And I was going to ask you, before I state myself, how do you like the artistry element of Onslaught? Because I am very impressed of Shuma's concept of a big, lumbering overlord like SNK boss character. He's not too fast, but he's got very powerful callouts, and he's got a big, deep voice, and he's hella tall. What do you feel about the artistry implemented from Shuma here?
Um, I I feel this is my favorite of his implementation so far. I feel he did a great job with both Colossus and Hinata in capturing their characters, but I feel like the execution with Onslaught both pushed the boundaries more of what is in the game and did so in a really good way where that pushing was for creating something unique and interesting instead of just a same thing but higher numbers situation. And the fact that Onslaught has very limited ground normals, but they're pretty potent for what they do. Like not having access to an H or a crouch H that happens within any reasonable time frame is pretty terrifying, but he's just such a satisfying character even without it. And I feel that's one of the things that Shuma's really shined in the creation of this character is that along with the aesthetics that they've been able to implement is that they brought a brand new feel to the play of Marvel, and I appreciate that element.
And I wanted to add more to that specifically, like since I remember reading all those like comics back in the day for X-Men, it's like, oh, Onslaught is just a big old character. Then when Marvel 3 came out, it was like, oh, it would have been fun to see it. But then I saw Shuma, like with the trailers, like, oh my god, this is happening. And we got our hands on him. And every normal feels like satisfying. There's a oomph behind it. Like every character Shuma has put out has that feeling. Like Colossus, you hit 6H, you feel it breaking their dome. And like Onslaught just does it to a how can I say that? Like it goes from 1 to 100 extremely quickly. It's just everything about Onslaught feels like it was made with a purpose. There's a reason why that's there. There's a screen shake there. There's this and that. There's a crumple. Everything just feels good about it. Like Shuma's been constantly giving us like the buffet, not just cooking. He's making up the whole buffet with his mod characters. And I just want him to keep going. Like, don't stop. Just keep cooking.
Chef Shuma in action.
Indeed. And I mean, just I'm going to throw this out as a reminder for those not aware of who Onslaught is. He is a composite of Xavier unleashing his full power and getting partially the powers and the literal mind of Magneto. So, and this causes insanity between the two minds as they collide, specifically because they are at a point of conflict when this happens. And I think he embodies that pretty well. But it's also time to talk about the other big thing that happened in the news: the return of DMC5
Oh,
Virgil, a
yes.
character who kind of took names the last time they were legal in the rule set. Huge names.
I feel like DMC5 Virgil is one of those characters that we've only seen a couple of specialists with him, and those specialists have done work. I think that the thing that had been the tipping point that got him banned was Evasion entered in the TNS tournament, and he had the infinite consistently, and it was part of his game plan, and he would do it as his primary combo, as you should when you have an infinite. That is the correct way to play a character with an infinite. But other than that, we didn't actually see almost any representation of him in bracket. He's just a character that has a lot of complexity, a lot of things that need to be learned outside of the normal. Like many characters will have one or two command normals, and that's like, oh dang, this character has some command normals. DMC5 Virgil has command normals on every button in multiple directions.
Yes, sir. It's so good. I remember playing him before when I started hopping on the pallet swap and everything. Then when I came on the Avengers server, I was like, oh, he's banned, wondering why. Then I saw the Evasion tournament. It's like, ah, damn, that sucks. I really like playing him. Like he had an insane amount of options. Like for people like me that just spends most of their time in Marvel, like labbing stuff and finding stuff, the MC5 Virgil is just like a pure gold mine. Then he came back recently. It's like, oh, time to get my rusty hands back onto him. And everything's still there, back and forward command normals on everything, even down forward stuff, even with S as common normals, like a bajillion. If you think DMC3 Dante had moves, DMC5 Virgil is like 7 DMC3 Dante together. It's amazing. Then you get the level 3.
DMC21?
Yeah, DMC21, yeah. It's so many moves. It's just, I love it. I'm even tempted to finally enter a palette, so I'm like, I want to show that. I found so much stuff. I want to do it.
For context, DMC5 Virgil has a spreadsheet that represents his move list. He has multiple substances based off of starters and weapon flow, and various unique specials that come off of these potential substances of the various weapons, making him perhaps one of the, if not the most complex Marvel characters we've ever seen. And it means that it's probably going to be an absolute problem if this character is strong again, balancing him because he just has so many moves.
I think that now that the immediacy of a infinite that is accessible has been removed, we're going to get to see a lot more of the interesting elements about the character. But I think that it is going to be a pretty big risk for a lot of people to try and invest in, because since he's a complex character with space where error may be challenging, learning those is something that often disincentivizes people in bracket. But I would not be surprised if we had a couple specialists really pick up with him and do the work. Especially like he has incredibly useful normals, not normals. He has incredibly useful tools for impacting the neutral, where he could put hitboxes in useful areas. And also, his assists have gotten quite an update. Have y'all seen the Devil Trigger Drive assist at this point?
It's so
Yes.
good. It is. That everything in Sin Devil Trigger gets up to 11, like the priorities, the move, the startup, the hitbox, but that drive assist. Oh my sweet Marvel Jesus! It is so good. It's like, hold this block and you better be ready because I will schmix you. And the fact that this, like every normal has like different stuff, like the backwards, like whole, I think it's 1, 2, 3, the four and normal all have armor if you hold them up for I think 1 or 2 hits. The forward have more reach and I think priority, which allows you to mix and match your offense. And if you hit the normal standard normals without any input commands, you can dash cancel any of them as long as it's on hit. So you can go normal normals into either the Beowulf normals or just the. It's I just love it. There's so many options galore. Everybody.
Regular Virgil is gifted at being a character who really fits any slot in a team. I feel like DMC Vibe, in my mind, is either a point or an anchor just because how unbelievably strong his tools are when backed with an assist, or just like base Virgil and X Factor, the damage never stops coming. Plus, he still has access to a variant of Spiral Swords.
I'd say it's pretty similar.
Yeah, I definitely am curious to see how he ends up working out as far as like positioning on a team. Having a useful assist and useful DHC is incredibly powerful, and But every character is better when they have support. But some characters, when they have support, go from being good to unreasonable. And DMC5 Virgil, I bet, is one of the characters that has some things that can be pushed with just a little bit of support to become much more unreasonable by default. I'm curious to see how that ends up playing out in the ecosystem, though. And even though we haven't gotten them into tournament play yet, in the beta testing lobbies, along with working on Onslaught, Shuma was also working on Hayato, a character that a bunch of people only know from Marvel 2 but, after he came out of Plasma Sword. But how do y'all feel about Shuma's other investment, which isn't quite done cooking yet, but is bringing some other unique things to the palette swap environment?
Remember in the palette swap, like the beta lobby came out, so I tried Onslaught once. I was like, oh, this is fun. And other people came out and said, oh, let me try Hayato. Like, okay, let's see how different he is from Marvel 2. I feel he's pretty similar in a lot of ways, but also entirely different. And I just love everything Shuma did with him, or is doing with him so far. Because like some normals nullify projectiles, he has sword movement, like he can loop certain supers from what I've seen, I'm pretty sure, but that might be subject to change. He feels relatively fast, but not too fast. It's just Hayato, but I feel like better, because in Marvel 2, Hayato wasn't one of the best characters. He wasn't Magneto or Psylocke level, but while I still feel like a lot of the characters in Marvel 2 were pretty viable, it's just they can't compete with gods.
I also looking at him, I never got to play him, and I really, really, really want to play him. And the reason I like him is that while not being good, I feel like of the sword characters, he has very low baggage for the player. Like he has long limbs, he has like other specials that sync well with having long limbs, and right. He's not quite a Shoto archetype, but I'm so reminded of, say, playing Kai from Guilty Gear with him at times. You can keep people on the blade's edge, you can utilize the projectiles, and sometimes you can go for hard reads of like the anti-airs or other tools. And it looks like Shuma's ported that over pretty well. So I'm super excited. But unlike Isasera, I didn't get to play the character, and I'm now feeling slightly salty about this.
There will be opportunities in the future. Fortunately, the Avengers runs beta lobbies pretty frequently at this point, so the chances to explore more Hayato before he's completed, or just once he ends up being fully baked and coming out to the public, are going to happen. But one of the things that I feel is like bringing up in Marvel 2, he had to compete with the gods. And one of the things that I feel is interesting is what we have in the meta for modded Marvel, as far as like in Marvel 2, every character that was not good had a losing matchup to Magneto, but they fought him in order to lose to him because his fastest button was one frame and their fastest button was not. Like it was part of life, and it was a hard part of life, and it was challenging. But then a lot of the characters who would like lose to Magneto, but it would be a fight. They would lose to Sentinel with Commando Assist, and it would not be a fight because he would fly backwards and he would summon Commando Assist, and he would spit occasionally, and it would prevent characters from getting to play. And I feel like Hayato was one of the characters that really was punished by things like Sentinel being in the game because he didn't have an answer to Sentinel just moving away with Commando Assist and occasionally spitting. But we don't, the ecosystem we have for modded Marvel doesn't have that much, or like as far as the meta is concerned, not that many people are playing that way currently. I feel like the players that are most likely to try and shut people out are probably, or at least in the tournaments, have been Renard with Guile and Edsadai when their Cyclops ends up on point.
Yep.
But I feel like otherwise, Hayato has not, or the environment's not super hostile to a character like Hayato right now.
Well, I feel it that in the environment we have right now in Palace, well, pretty much every character can do something. Like there's no super, how can I say, there's no really like teams or that have been put out that prevent people to play. It's true that if you play, let's say, Orange Hulk, but the other team is full on keep away, your life is going to be hard, but you can still fight compared to like you were saying, Marvel 2 with Sentinel just sending back, calling in Commando, Because in Pallet Swap, I think we only have Shadow Lady assist and maybe Guile's flash kick, like some invincible DPs, but they're not super ultra oppressive. Like every character has a chance to play. Like we've seen Serb buff in grand finals, and the sky's the limit. Like every character can do stuff.
That's the transition actually for our next topic, which is last week in Pallet Swap, because I think we saw some very interesting things in the bracket, and a lot of them are referring exactly to what you were describing. I feel like we didn't have character crises, but a lot of players have decided that they need a little freshness in their team. And that's heavily reflecting the fact that sometimes they'll try one particular character and we'll have an entire week of a character. And other times we have almost no like companion wise in terms of like people playing the same teams. It's all everybody going out on their own. Isaiah, you took Pallet Swap last week, but had a lot of trouble fighting through in a clone engine is different players, different teams. How do you think this is lining up at the moment?
As far as it goes, I feel like TJ beat me because he was a better player that was making better player rates on me, and that I think the the characters I was playing, I think do pretty well against his team, but I I was getting outplayed, and it was like, dang, this is a great experience because it was really satisfying to see that he embraces the ways that Orange Hulk is different from Hulk, while also getting him to integrate well with the base cast, using the wide, long hit stun OTG in order to be able to get confirms for base game Hulk and for Hagar. It's been really pleasing to see TJ coming out in these brackets, and also Noel Brown, who had beaten me in the previous week in Grands, or a previous Clone Engine in Grands. He had cooked me that time, and I needed to adjust. And this time, I made sure to snap his Dormammu repeatedly because that character will kill me since he has great movement with Dormammu, and being it's one of the things that we don't have anything quite like him in the ecosystem that has flight, teleport, 8-way air dash that's not gated behind resources. Like Clea can somewhat do that, but she doesn't get to fill the screen with meterless meteors, and she doesn't have the like chip potential that he does. So seeing that be integrated more into the environment has been really positive. And also like uh on the note of Noel, like when he entered the previous week, it had just been like, oh, he didn't even know it was Clone Engine, but then was willing to adapt and try something new. And I really like that about the modded community in general, is that people are so willing to like learn new things and try things and figure out what works. And being able to see people just come into the community and be like, I'm willing to give this a shot is pretty great.
It's like we pretty much in the same spirit of that. This week in the last Clone Engine tournament in Pallet Swap, Miss Gray came out to play after years of like being played by maybe one or two players. The Rampart was there, the wall, the Great Wall of Jean was just there, making what she's always done, basically just putting out projectiles, getting in, air dashing, teleports. That magnificent down heavy, just doing Jean things. Even though people never play her, Jean is always consistently a very good character. She's never been bad. It's just sometimes people forget. Like some characters are still good. Like we were talking earlier, Spider-Gwen is still very good, but barely anyone plays her. Like I still feel like X is an amazing character even after the nerfs. He's still really good, but no one plays him. It's just there's so many options. Like people just start playing new things, like especially this week. I want to see what we get tomorrow and after. I know after tomorrow is base Marvel, but tomorrow is Pallet Swap, and I want to see like
We're getting Onslaught. I'm telling you right
it's gonna
now,
be the day of Onslaught. Onslaught is coming.
we not just me, so many people are going to be playing Onslaught this week. He came out and like Ed Sedai has been scheming with this character since before he got released to the tournament setting. And then other folks have been really scheming with him in the lobbies. So I think we're going to see at least 3 Onslaught players this week, maybe even
I'd say
more.
4.
I mean, situationally, I don't want to make this sound like it's some silly science experiment, but what's interesting about Pallet Swap is that you have people trying to recreate how they see Marvel 3 in the base game. and trying to say recreate how their teams work or how their play styles prefer big body player, not big body player, like very strong keep away, very defensive zoner, or a lot of 8-way air dash players potentially. And because I said we're not necessarily talking, we're only having a few people labbing each character. It is the situation where I cannot recommend enough that you should try currently playing in this meta, because I I sometimes call out when characters are strong and nobody's paying attention to me because they have their own instinct, their own feeling about this, and it's very interesting. I don't want to make this sound like a science experiment talking about the meta. It's really, really cool when we see one player pop off of a character and the next week, I don't know, 4 to 5 people are playing said character, trying them out. Or even when one person's doing well with a character mid bracket, like they haven't even seen it before. Like during the week when everybody swapped to serve bot, they just decided they wanted to play serve bot in the middle of a bracket while playing other people playing serve bot. It's this collective mindset that's made up of all these little islands of people's perception of Marvel, and the clash is so interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating to see which things ebb and flow with characters, and that's one of the things that I have found fascinating though is that even though people will try new things, we don't have a community that largely over centralizes on a few builds. Like there was a season of the Commando and the season of Gambit, but even with that being true, the majority of our teams have so much diversity in between them. And Wizard Tim, noting what you had said about you're calling these characters that are good, and when people are not necessarily playing them in a representational way of how good they are. And one of the things that I find I often run into as a challenge as a player is whatever characters I'm labbing, I think are better because I know all of the tech that I'm labbing with them. But then I won't have labbed, or it's been a longer time since I've labbed some other characters, and then I won't have their tech especially in my brain. So I'm like, oh, were they really that good? And I've had some very inaccurate opinions that have shifted over time. Like I had put Gambit is like okay because it's like he's just such a simple character. He has good normals. He has a passable projectile. He has a passable combo tool. He has a passable mix-up tool. But then even though he seems so simple, he also just has so many things that are like, oh, this makes life easier in the environment. Like, he has a horizontal ground control assist, which is really solid, does decent damage. Having access to those cards is great. He has both really high utility DHCs because if he does the Cajun explosion, he's able to move his hurt box to one of the walls in a specific location without needing to actually travel through the hitboxes in between there. And that ends up being ridiculously useful for DHCing. And then the cards, if he just does the cards, they're safe on blocks. So he has amazing DHCs both in and out. He has access to great assists. His staff normals are beautiful. But then I was just like, oh, this character's simple. So I had underrated him for a long time. And I think that some people just have like very different reasons for where they rate things. I often rate things that have high complexity pretty high because I assume that there's more likely depth to be discovered, while rating things that have low visible complexity lower.
Back then, I remember it's like, oh yeah, he's good, but you know, he has like a couple moves. That's it. But then, like you said, the assist is good, but then our Lord and Savior Cajun Strike and Cajun Escape being just able to zoom across the screen with a move that is relatively safe depending on the like distance you do it. There's also
As long as you're not against Psychelic, right?
yeah, as long as you're not against Psychelic, it's gonna work. If you're playing against Psychelic, you're just asking to get grabbed every single time. Your face will hit the floor. You just can't escape. Like Psychelic is ready for the grab. And there's characters like Servbot. I love Servbot. The little character people thought, oh, he's a joke. He's not good. He's never gonna work. Then we had the week of Servbot where people understood, oh, his assist is pretty great, and alone, yeah, he does pretty mediocre damage, but he's so small. He got like small boy privileges. You have to do specific combos on him. And after that, if he's an X Factor or something, the homies can chip you. They do decent chip. Then there's like Homie Legion, the Fire. You got like relaunches. Like it's just people underestimate these characters because they think, oh, either they're a joke or they're too simple or there's no immediate power, and they don't lab them more so they don't found out like the really amazing stuff. It's just no, you gotta give characters time, you gotta give them some love, pat them on the back, take them out for coffee, then you get to learn the cool stuff. It's just give the characters time.
And I think people underestimate that player synergy as a stat is talking to really the last two brackets. Gambit is always there, and maybe he's not the clutchest character in the world. Like we have seen him made mortal quite often, but at the same time, he's still putting in comebacks because players are confident under intense pressure of the character because they know how to readjust his combo paths to get it to work. They know super can potentially save them or get extra damage. And level 3 with X Factor usually kills almost everyone on the roster. So player synergy is huge. And like I think he has stayed relevant partially because even though Cajun Escape, Cajun Strike is very punishable, players should just know when to use it. It's their specialty move. We've seen Zoroyle use it. We've seen Dobby use it. And, you back it. You can. It's great because it's a team building thing, is that you can make it safe through certain assist synergies. And it's not too hard to do. So the glue and the cohesion between Gambit and two other characters is great because you'll see Dobby playing like Gambit with Psylocke. And that's scary because then you have the ability to use his long range limbs to pick up airborne characters off the assist. But I've seen it with Monster Hunter, giving her a lot of little cohesion bits because she needs a support to be so relentless as she is. And I think that the other characters are doing this, but like that's what we're talking about, where players are finding what they feel right about more than just what's the most top tier. Sometimes that's even obvious, but you just don't want to play the character because it's not you.
Totally. Like I people have various opinions on my relationship with tiers, obviously. I have literally played all of the characters, so I am willing to be more diverse in character choice than essentially all folks. But I also trend very much towards playing characters that if their tier list does not start with S, they probably are not going to be on my teams frequently. I think that finding out what character does the thing that you find fun in games the most effectively in the game that you're playing is really important, because even like there's a pretty big difference in between people who are playing like Zero or Morrigan or Magneto or Phoenix in base game. They're all very powerful characters, but the thing that draws people to play them can be very different for different people. And I feel like one of the things that could feel rough for a lot of folks is when they play a game and in the environment, it seems like no character of the archetype that they want to play is actually good enough that they should be played. And I feel one of the blessings that we have with Modded Marvel is that the the game is so amazing that all the things that people have modded into it are viable characters. They can do work when they're in the right situation, and just giving them the right support can make a world of difference for it. One thing that you had noted earlier, Wizard Tim, was about Gambit being on all these different teams, and I think that's one of the strengths that Gambit has that not all of the modded characters have, is that a lot of the modded characters really want to be a point character supported by two assists. They don't have a safety HC in case they're in a second position. They don't have a dominant assist to control neutral, and they would like to be on point with some support. But that's one of the things that makes Gambit so incredibly strong is he fits anywhere. You could have him on point and get a lot of work done. You could also have him in second and get a lot of work done. And we've seen him in Anchor doing the same thing. But I think the characters that have that aspect of them, like a Gambit or Stars Jill, really do manage to turn into these characters that when we see a flavor of the week popping up of something that supports a neutral and a lot of people are playing, it ends up being a character like that.
How many players are currently regularly doing matches of other competitive level players? off stream as it would be. Is I know you play against, say, Renard, and you often regularly are playing Golden Nut, Ed, and everyone else when you do a open lobby.
Mhm.
But I do wonder, like, how many people are playing against players maybe we don't even know exist because they don't want to play on the Parsec infrastructure. This perfectly makes sense. It's a challenge. It definitely is. And I do wonder, like, is there an element of the way we have these diversity of characters just because we still have smaller collectives that are sort of competing against each other with what they're generating in terms of tech, matchups, and even just first to 100 experience for these players?
I would definitely agree that the size of the community is partially impacting this. But on top of that, I think the size of the roster also partially impacts this because we are at the point where there are what 107 characters in the game. Is
108.
is that it? 106, 107?
Like there's 48 in base, and I
No, there's
think
50 in base because
50. Okay,
or
I guess
Jill and Shuma. I
Shuma.
am
Yeah,
counting Jill and Shuma.
I always forget those. So 50, and there's what 54,
57 or
50.
something.
So that would make 107 all around characters.
So for a like in general, learning that many matchups is really hard. And in games like Smash Ultimate, you see that having such a large roster means that having expertise in a matchup that is not one of the like top five most represented or characters or so is actually pretty challenging for a lot of people in a lot of situations. I think that's a thing that is coming up in our system here, where along with what you're saying about the size of the community for these online events is pretty limiting for what we're seeing. That also the size of the cast impacts it, but also I think a lot of people Marvel is not like a main game at Evo currently or anything like that. And people play Marvel because they love Marvel. So I think a lot of the people that are playing because they love the game and they're playing to win, but winning is not the like primary thing that is drawing them to the events. And I think that if more money got involved or more people were entering and there were like entry fees and things like that, that we probably would see more gravitation towards like the top sets of shells and characters that win increase win percentage the most. But I think that we're pretty different from that environment currently.
Well, we're coming back like not everyone comes in because of that, like it's on Parsec and everything. I I regularly play with a bunch of friends that I've played with for like 10 plus years, and we've been playing Pallet Swap ever since I found out about it. It's like, oh, they're making modded characters. Like, would you want to play it? So then after that, we got to installing everything and getting it to work. When we did that, it was just us finding like the characters we felt comfortable with and everything, getting our bearings. But then we started like playing and playing, and we found like our meta, and then we started seeing the Avengers like tourneys and stuff. Like, oh, this character that we thought was absolute garbage is actually one of the best because none of us played X or King Thor. Like, oh, these characters are bad because they're not, let's say, Zero or Thor. But then we started seeing them. It was like, oh, damn, these characters are good. And then we thought, could we even enter these? Because these people are just like, seeing everything that people were doing, the mix-ups, the setups. Like, oh, this is rough. Like, could we even like? How can I say that? Could we even, like, believe we could have a chance in there? Like, I know my friends would because they're super good Marvel players. I was like, oh my god, I get Wash out there. These people are going wild with this. Like some people, like for me, are don't want to enter because they either believe they don't have the skill to enter, or they're scared because it's either, oh, it's the like I don't want to do that, or it's in front of people. People are going to see me play bad. I don't want that to happen. It's get the right mindset for it, and I think a lot of people don't want to do that because one, it's for modern Marvel, so it's not even base Marvel, which is already a pretty hard game, but also an old game. So they're like, why would I spend time on that when I could play X new fighting game that came out? I think it's just a thing with the mindset of people. which is why our community is still relatively small, even though we have like super good players. I mean, we're talking with one right now, Isis Era.
Aw, thanks.
Truth.
Though, on that exact note, I think that as a player, I have been so like people are like, dang, I'm gonna get schooled on stream and it's gonna feel so bad. I think that I am one of the players that has had the most like highlight clip of me getting blown up of all players. Like I just happened to, especially in base game when I was playing something obnoxious like Morgan, where it's like, dang, I was able to secure an advantage. I'm in the lead. Things are feeling good. I'm the villain because I played top tier in this situation. And then somebody is like, I see Isis's soul. We're about to destroy her. It makes that read. It blows me up. So even though I'm probably the person who has benefited among the most of folks who play palette swaps since I've won a decent amount of the tournaments. And I have had so many experiences of getting blown up on stream. And even though it's like frustrating to some degree, at the end of the day, you could either be frustrated about it or you could be like, it hurt to be hit by that, but damn, that was kind of sick. Because I think that when you like get into the zone of being like everything that all these people are doing is contributing to the greater whole. And even if you get blown up at sometimes, there could be something that you learn from it, or it could be a good experience in other ways. And feeling like you're gonna get wrecked in some way is not necessarily the entirety of your experience, especially if you're playing in things like locals where you actually get to interact with people. Because I feel one of the big challenges with Parsec is that you don't have that like interaction of being around the people in person, so there it could feel more intimidating, so because you don't have the people who are like after your match being like, oh, I saw this thing you did and it was really cool, I also play this character, let's go to Denny's afterwards, or I guess you're Canadian, the Tim Hortons, and let's
The Tims.
grab something to munch on and talk about this matchup because I saw you were having challenges with Wesker. I hate that matchup when he has the gun. Let's figure it out. And that's much easier to do in person. But over Parsec, the community for the Avengers is full of such sweet people and just like wonderful folks that are in the community. So I highly recommend, even if you think you're gonna get blown up or you don't feel worthy in some way or any of that, trying and participating in things like it could be more fun than you anticipate.
Mm-hmm. No, exactly what you are projecting is my goal in the regard of the fact that I would love to be a TO for this game. I have basic production experience and I've lost the ability to play through various finger carpal tunnel like syndromes. So it's a situation that I'm labbing characters solely because I want to be in the know about what I'm going to be projecting to other people. I want to be able to confidently tell you, you should play this character. That's a really good move. Or wow, what great pressure tools available to this character. And it's my goal to perpetuate this further. As I said, I think Palette Swap is great because it's probably the only time, other than maybe Project M and a few other heavily community-based metagame games, where you're going to see the community's opinions, thoughts, and aspects personified in the game itself. And it has led to a lot of things I didn't even expect in the best sort of way. I think it's worth always saying his name. Hi, I am Tabs is an amazing modder in terms of one of the earlier Palette Swap experts. He managed to flesh out all these Resident Evil characters who, if you told me, oh, they'd make a great Marvel character, I would definitely look at you and say, Sherry. Sherry would make a great Marvel character. Yeah, and maybe Servbot is top tier.
But is he though? No. I don't think he's not. But
In our hearts, Surf Buff is top tier. We all know.
Sir Bot is pretty good. But like Tim was mentioning, one of the great things about this, like people who hear me talk often, I'm a mechanics lady, not a lore lady. But when it comes to characters, there's so many characters that I didn't know anything about. I had never heard of Hunk. I wasn't someone who was like, oh, in the Resident Evil lore, I am super hyped for Hunk. But then seeing Hunk play and getting the opportunity to be like, ooh, he gets to grenade cancel and has all of these interesting movement tools and has one of the most amazingly executed level 3s, not even just among the modded characters, but I think even in comparison with like the base game cast. The there's just so many things where you get exposed to cool new characters that you would have never known were cool, except for the chance to play them in Modded Marvel, let you see the things that were beautiful and amazing about them.
Oh, coming back to that, I remember I never fought Bison before, but then we did. Like, it's coming back to the point like of not feeling adequate or something, or just having fun even though you're losing. I remember before you did your week of Bison, you and I played 70 games back to back from 0 to 70. I won twice in that whole set. And I did not hate that set from beginning to end because I got my ass whooped. The floor was mopped with my Canadian body the whole way around. But I was like, I can do this. I feel like if I just play better, if I am more patient and respect Psycho Crusher, because I was not respecting Psycho Crusher, right, things would go well. And eventually, after 50 or so games, I just was in the zone. I got one game in. I was like, yes, I did it. It paid off. I got murdered, slaughtered, butchered, but here I am. I have one on the board. Let's go. I proceeded to lose 10 more games until I got one more. When I started Marvel, I would have stopped at 10. Be like, that's enough. I cannot fight this. This is just out of my pay grade. But like that's the thing. Even when I play with my friends, sometimes I'm like, I don't want to play this. I can't fight this. But then I still play it. Even like, no, I'm sure I can find a gap somewhere in there. There has to be something I can do. It's just sitting down and thinking about what you're doing, what's happening, and why are you getting hit. Like it's not everybody can do that on the fly. Sometimes you have to stop, go like in the lab, figure out that one setup that was opening you, blowing you up, absolutely shredding you, and you figure it out, you go right back into it, and oh, look at that. It was super easy. Why didn't I think of that before? It's just even if you're losing hard, like just take time, go at it, look at what's happening, and just ask for help. I'm sure if I went into the Avengers Discord after we played, I'm like, hey, I got blown up by Bison like 68 games. Any good Bisons in there can give me advice so that I can go back to Isis era and now mop the floor with her, which probably wouldn't have happened, but I would have had maybe more than 2 games. Just, you can always ask people, and I really like that about the Avengers. I could just go in there. Maybe if I want to get Evil Ryu advice, I could go, hey, Golden Nut, are you free for some games? I need go like Evil Ryu or Double-licious too. Or if I want to fight Gambit, hey, is Arroyo care to whoop me up with the Cajun man?
I could never stop being impressed with Zoroyo.
200 MS, no problem.
Yeah, and 200 MS, no problem. And some of the play he does is like highly predictive and doing like the player reads that are hard in order to get things done. But sometimes it'll be like, he does a defensive X Factor into throw in 200 MS, and it's like, wait, I have a hard time doing that in 3 MS. You are killing it, Zoroyo.
On a membrane keyboard, effectively a Chromebook.
Yeah, no less. With smoke signals.
But that's one of the things that I think is really powerful that you had mentioned earlier, Oblivion, is that when you have a matchup and you're having a hard time in it, and it's like, dang it, I am losing. What do I need to do about this? And being able to like get into that space where it's like, okay, instead of focusing on being frustrated that I'm losing, and I am frustrating that I'm losing, and I acknowledge this. What are the things that I'm running into? Okay, the Psycho Crusher thing seems like it's pretty nonsense. Whenever I try to shoot at him, he just gets the Psycho Crusher and gets the full combo and I die. That's not great. Let's test some other things against it. Okay, if I swing with the big normal, it seems like some of the time it'll win, but then there's still that like assist behind him to protect, so it still seems really scary to do. And being able to go through that like trial and error process of figuring out like, okay, I'm getting blown up by something. What should I do differently? And then actually trying different things. It's so hard to do, but it's how you get better. Because, like, I know sometimes I'll be like, okay, the next time this person tries to do the block string that lowers me to the ground. They command grab you 3 times in a row. I'm gonna try the invincible super when they do it the next time. Then they do the block string that lowers me to the ground, and then I'm like, I'm gonna mash crouch light because that makes me feel safe. It's like, wait, I had a plan. The plan was better than this. I just got punished and died. So being able to be okay with yourself when it's like, dang it, brain, I wish that you would instantly take all of this information and process it. And brains don't necessarily always do that. Being able to be like patient with yourself while learning the things, because learning stuff is hard, is so valuable. Actually, I'm curious, Wizard Tim, since you do stuff in the educational field, what are your thoughts on learning in the context of a more traditional sense? You're learning like English or a mathematical skill or something, and learning in a context like Marvel, where you're trying to predict your opponent's behaviors and figure out what works within system to be able to interface with them.
This actually lines up really well in terms of when we're talking about the education system. Is that you can teach people things, but they don't always pick up on the complexities of it. They'll be able to forewrote recite everything you told them, but the greater context of what happened doesn't ever breach them. This is very much a byproduct of how we teach things, and there are a lot of potential baggages or issues specifically when we're talking about neurodiversity of students. But comparative to
Mm.
Marvel, literally what Oblivion said is the big thing. People will do so much more, learn so much more on their own, even if their emotions run high in some regard to the topic. I've had people, myself even, I've so hated a book so much. I tried to come up with a way of writing the book where I could still diss it to literal hell because I thought it was terrible. In doing so, I read the book maybe 4 or 5 times and found incredibly carefully positioned and worded criticisms that perfectly fell into what the teacher was teaching, but literally there was nothing good about said book in my essay because I was trying to keep it onto my own emotions. And I think it's like same thing with Marvel, as you said, when you really want to beat something, like don't want to be caught looking stupid in front of, astral visions again. You will engage that intense, focused learning experience and you will start applying all of your skills, your experience, and all these things to it. You can watch 1,000 YouTube videos how to beat Morgan and still, even if a character like Virgil or Zero, not be able to do it because a really good character, as I said before, is sort of like a portion of your body, right? It's your arms, your legs, and things. And the more you get in tune with a character and the more you feel both your team and your desire to do so, the more you're likely to be able to do what you couldn't by simply watching a video. I do worry that people try and play like Isisera and realize I'm not getting anywhere because Isisera's incredible mind behind the way they play is what guides them to be able to pick up characters in roughly a week. Am I hitting that right?
Yeah, I think that one of the things to note there is that I have a lot of cross transferable experience from having played uh, late in the life cycle of Marvel 2 and then the entire life cycle of Marvel 3. So when I'm learning a new thing, I'm not also in the process of being like, oh, so how should I summon this assist in order to keep them safe? Like, I know where my screen positioning, if an opponent is falling at this rate, this is how I could safely summon my assist. And that's a thing that's going to increase my win percentage regardless of what my character is. So I feel like a lot of people get the illusion that I am learning it at a faster rate. When if you look at the combos I'm doing, some like I would say about 5 to 10% of the time I have optimized the combo better than the people who were playing the character previously. But most of the time, the people that have been grinding combo tech for a character have found better combos than what I end up using in the week I play them. So I feel like the fact that I just have these cross transferable skills from playing the game and then playing all of these characters has been really helpful in becoming aware of that. Because it's like, oh, what's the thing that works well regardless of who I'm playing, and what are the things that actually let me do that? One of and Dan was a very great teacher for me in that because I was like, oh my gosh, I hate so many of Dan's tools. They make me sad. This is before he got buffed and had really cool movement and all kinds of things added into him. But like I felt so saddened by so many things. But then I was like, okay, I'm saddened by all these things, but what are some things that are good about this character? Because there has to be some things. It's like his dash is okay, and his dash is actually a little bit better than okay. So if I am able to dash into the right place with Dan and then summon a good assist, that's doing a similar thing to what I would do with any of the good characters. Is it's time for me to get into the right place at the right time and have the support option that I already understand available. And I think that has been critical to be getting to play a lot of these characters. But if a character is cool to you, play the character. I think that looking at what other people do is good for inspiration, but then you get hits in different ways from how I get hits. No matter who you are, like maybe you have a better time confirming off of fireballs at normal jump height than I do, and because of that, more of your hits come from that, and you need to learn confirms for different situations. But I have a similar thing that comes from hitting with the tip of a sword at a really low range far away, and the confirm works the same for either thing. So being able to look at other people's tools for addressing situations instead of being like, I'm going to copy this tool and try to copy what they're doing, try to apply their tools in the situations you find yourself in, because you may be better at some things than they are, and learning how to figure out how to leverage your strengths with things that provide more value for making a good read based off what you see from other people is really powerful.
Well, I think it's time to transition perfectly, may I say, into the last topic for the show, which is bring me a character. And this is the moment where
Woo!
guests brought onto the show will get to teach a small lesson about a character of their choosing and how they relate to Clone Engine or Palette Swap or both. This can be a base roster character in Clone Engine or a Palette Swap character in all of the above. I have, for example, Frank West is my character to bring because I think if we're talking about characters that earn something new with the addition of the modded roster, Frank is a very strong candidate. He always has been reasonably good to the middle range of the team. He has a great assist and shopping cart. And there are plenty of characters in the base roster that can level him up. Maybe not always the best synergy. But a core aspect that we have seen with modded characters is they often have pretty good cash out supers, multi hits, as well as make great use of certain aspects of the system in terms of like knockdowns, ground bounces, and other things that we consider fairly intrinsic, thus are applied to modded characters. I play Hunk as my somewhat dominant palette swap character, and I remember thinking about Dante and Frank, and I decided, hey, what happens if I try the same exact thing with Frank and Hunk, and found out, oh wait, that works perfectly. In fact, in some regards, it works even better because I found out, oh, wait, I can use the grenade DHC option from Hunk to also set up a Frank photo. It's a situation that, as the toolbox expands, there's certain characters in the base roster, Frank being the example I choose here, who will get so much new tech because they were just waiting for a friend. And whether or not this makes them top tier is pretty irrelevant. But I feel like Frank is definitely an example of a character I have always loved to play, but I've never actually liked a lot of the shells he's played with. I do like that, like, I just cannot for the life of me play Dante in Marvel 3, despite playing him quite a bit in Infinite. The Dormammu synergy is also just distinctively weird. But with a lot of the palette swap characters, I am feeling like Frank is in his place. I love the two other characters I'm playing. You know, Stars Jill. This is fantastic. I've got an OTG assist that also has a duration long enough to snap a photo. Oh, I'm in trouble. Let's
Match
use
made
the
in heaven.
DHC. Need more damage? Do it again. So that's my
Some Palette Swap
comment.
characters just give the good stuff.
If you should consider Frank in Clone Engine because so much of the modded roster unlocks his potential in ways that is enjoyable, refreshing, and overall showing the absolute enjoyment you get of coexistence when you have both those rosters.
Can I have some thoughts on your character before going
Please.
into my own? So I was looking at the roster and thinking in relation to Frank West, and had realized that as far as it goes, we've seen Best Xbox play Frank West on some Clone Engine teams in bracket. Um, to take advantage of certain things. I believe one of the ones was the hard knockdown on Ultron's beam, with it being like 10 million hits while also hard knockdowning. And if he was any distance away, being able to DHC into Frank with the tools of survival, have it with, and then go into camera was one of the nice things for him as well. And I think one of the other things about Frank is that since Shopping Cart is so strong at the mid range, characters that are able to get in that like space where they could win neutral with Shopping Cart and then consistently convert it into something that will get you level 5 rank seem like they would be pretty potent. I feel like along with the Stars Jill, with the Ultron, there may be some additional opportunities in other multi-hit characters in the cast. I'm looking through things and I'm curious to see how Cyclops would work out. I think that you could probably hit top of Mega Optic Blast in some certain circumstances, but a lot of characters do seem like they'd be really fun friends for Frank. Oblivion, do you think there are any characters that specifically call to you as Frank homies out of the modded cast?
Well, Jane with the Orb Super, like Corsical Back Super, works extremely well. My friend made it work before. It's obscene. It's not fun. Instant level 5. Here we go. There's like Wizard Tim said, there's Hunk, there's Clea, Jean, like I said. Even Charlie can somewhat do it if you full screen like Sonic Boom Barrage. You have time to dash in, like get tools of the trade, get some dashes in. And if they got hit by the Sonic Booms, you get to have, I think my maximum was 3 photos. Because there's 3 or 4 rows of Sonic Boom, so you get at least level 4 from just that, and into full combo. And there's Orange Hulk has some setups. It's more complicated to do, but it is doable. I've been trying with Onslaught these past few days, see if he has some Frank synergies. It's somewhat there, but the drone super or the beams don't always work how you want them to, because sometimes they're too low and they drop into tools of the trade or other stuff like that. But I think in general, these characters I named will make Frank's life so much easier. You just put them first, Frank in the back, you get 2 bars, and that's it. That's level 5 Frank. He's ready to go and to wreck your day off.
Ooh, additional thoughts. Stars Chris, flamethrower, and has access to the Magnum, which has essentially no recovery. I'm curious what if Stars Chris and Frank would have some synergies that are interesting together, because they seem like they could be very hype.
I'm gonna have to mess with that. I did not think about that.
And of course, Gloria, she's best friends with
Yes.
everyone. She's good at
Well,
being
yeah,
friends
the
with
round trip
everyone.
assist. No damage, but all the levels in the bar.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, you did a combo with level 5 rank and it still didn't kill because it started off around her. but of course, she can support him pretty well. And I think that's one of the interesting things to think about is which characters are able to fill roles for characters that there wasn't previously something that filled that role. And I feel like a lot of the base game cast will be pretty substantially modified by things like having Gene Splice in the environment with an anti-air assist other than just Hagar Lariat. It seems very, very powerful, and like a lot of the base cast would be pretty heavily influenced by it. Oblivion, have you brought an excellent character for us today?
Of course, only nothing but the best. My homie, my one good character for 10 plus years, the Taskmaster himself.
Ooh, I played this character a lot too, so I'm excited to hear what you have.
I wish it was EX, but please continue.
I've messed plenty with EX Taskmaster with both Pallet Swap. I've messed with Super Taskmaster with Pallet Swap. I just play things together that shouldn't be played together because I love experimenting with weird stuff. But even normal Taskmaster, he loves Charlie's Boom. Like the Sonic Boom is just the perfect amount of speed for the perfect amount of bullshit. Orange Hulk gives them also a lot of options with the ground balance assist. It allows them to do down arrow loops in the air easier. It gets him a safe OTG because sometimes the down arrows from Spidey Swing don't always allow you to combo with certain assists depending on distance.
Mm.
Then there's characters like Clea who gives him a safe DHC for up arrows. Then there's other stuff like Hunk that allows him to keep away easier. Because that's the thing with Taskmaster. He's good at a lot of things, but he's not super good at them. He exists in that space. Like, he has keep away. It's decent. It is not Cyclops or stuff level. It's just decent. Like, he has good rushdown, but it's not Wolverine level rushdown. And
I don't
that's
know.
why
His 5M seems pretty top of class.
yeah,
Shield
5M is
too.
amazing. It's the god button, but it's punishable because it has a lot of recovery, and he still has two pretty useless moves that serves no purpose. Like Swordmaster and Shieldmaster are just atrocious beyond belief.
One of the
I'm so
local
sad.
players in my area for earlier in the Marvel 3 life cycle, Hanzo Gonzo, played
Wow, I love
Taskmaster
Hanzo Gonzo.
with.
Oh my god, that's old school.
Oh, I had not been in contact with Hanzo since I've been a hermit, but I recently saw they've been hosting these 10-0 media things, and they had an episode on Marvel for Top Tier, which was incredibly satisfying. Highly recommended. Hanzo is still a wonderful part of the community, even if I'm not as educated on his current roles and all the things. But he had played the Taskmaster with Amaterasu and was much more resource to use Swordmaster. A thing that round trip also makes useful again. Just
Yeah,
saying.
just lockdown assists allow that move to be used, but even then, the second you get push block, Swordmaster can be push block, which is the problem. So you pretty much never get the unblockable follow ups, but it
Yeah, you
can
want
be
to
a
have
good
long
pressure
duration
tool.
assists.
No, you do, specifically Ami and Gloria. I've been messing a lot with Gloria. It's
Ah,
it's pretty good. I'm not gonna lie, even though it makes my damage do like one hit per hit, but I still love to be able to use Swordmaster for once. Like, hey, I can use it. Finally, it's been 2,000 years, but I can do it. Then
you
there's
come out of the cave holding a
come out of the
tablet with
cave.
round trip on it.
I have
like,
found
I have
the
solution.
secret. You have anything to say about that, Wizard Tim?
Well, I mean, I
About
was
our
gonna
good
bet
Lord
like
Taskmaster?
the assist I think is the most important, at least in my mind, for Taskmaster and like the clone engine has been Star's Jill assist because off the
It's
ground
really good.
pressure assist that
Which
helps
one?
with keep away. Either flame grenade or the low angled gun.
Both are quite good.
Flame Grenade is great.
Because flame grenade is really cool. As Taskmaster actually has his own baked and hidden missile. It's just he doesn't get much after he locks the opponent in place most of the time. But when you apply flame grenade, oh, you wanted to jump, descending arrows. Oh, now you're grounded. Flame grenade. My turn again.
Who said it
It's
was your
pretty
turn?
sweet.
It's never your turn.
Incendiary is one of those tools that, as an assist, I think could pretty substantially alter the meta. Like, I think it is very likely that there are many characters, both base game and palette swap, that have things that are entirely nonsense with Incendiary as an assist. Because, like,
Oh yeah.
it's a lockdown assist, it's a defensive assist, it's an assist that
Physics.
does chip damage, it controls space. It is a wild and diversely useful tool that's pretty fascinating to see how it'll end up coordinating with all the various characters. So character for me, I've actually thought of a few different things over the course of this, and I think that I would like to talk about Captain Marvel at the moment because I think that Captain Marvel is in a unique position in that she can be any position on a team and it will be good for the team. So she's, I think, the only character that doesn't have any team building restrictions. You could just do whatever. Like the other things, as long as the other things work with each other, they will be what you need for her. And figuring out what can best support that is pretty fascinating. And one of the things that I've been appreciating recently is both last week with Gloria, Jean, Captain Marvel, and this week with Gloria, Onslaught, Captain Marvel, is when you have teams that build up enough resources that you could DHC all the way into install and have something advantageous on screen, it just lets her end up so privileged in how she interacts with all the other characters, because if she has frame advantage, her mix up is amazing. She is an 8-way air dash character with a reliable cross up, low, and a command throw. And unlike some of the other characters, she also kills you in the process of those things happening. So I feel like Captain Marvel is one of the characters that has a lot of interesting synergy just because she happens to have so many things that work well for others that
That
she ends up
amazing
putting
beam
herself.
assist. Oh my god.
Yes.
The softest of knockdown.
Yes, I still don't quite understand why it needs to be a soft knockdown, but I will work with this blessing while it exists, because
So good.
it, the fact that I think that's a great thing to note is some assists are good for neutral, some assists are good for combos, and Captain Marvel's is ideal for both. She gets an A+ in both things, because when you have a soft knockdown, you are going to be able to have so much time to do whatever you want with your point character and link useful things together. But then if you're just trying to win neutral, it's a beam that comes out at a relatively decent speed, and then you have forever to hit confirm off of it because of the soft knockdown. And it's just like she has such a great array of things for supporting those around her that when she pairs with other characters that could also do that so that she gets the cycle instead of just remaining on support role, it ends up being incredibly amazing.
I also just have a question specifically for you, Isisera. When channeling the mindset for Captain Marvel, when and where are you putting her on teams for various characters, considering you've tried the entire roster?
Hmm. Okay. So I think as of right now, Photon Blaster, because of the soft knockdown, because of the impact on neutral, and the idealness for combos, is generically the assist that most characters should want until they want something specific to accomplish a task. And that because of that, I end up putting her in anchor in a lot of situations, because I feel that even though she can be anywhere, providing a good assist so your first two characters both have good assists and also being a good dark anchor is not a common set of traits to have. So she ends up being anchor on for me a lot. But I feel the things that enable her to be in other positions is if you have another dark anchor that has a decent assist. But as I said, there's not that many of them. Actually, thinking about it, what characters for both of y'all do you consider to be the dark anchors that define the ecosystem? Because right now, I feel
Palette swap?
like in Clone Engine, but more the palette swap side of things, because we've seen Phoenixes kill people before and Virgils and all of that.
Stars still.
Stars Dill is definitely one of the characters that I see this character, and she ends up running through full teams on a pretty consistent
In a matter
basis.
of seconds.
Yeah, she has good properties for X Factor. She could kill in a way where she has frame advantage for her ideal mix up just by investing meter, and she will get the meter back if she hits the person with her ideal mix up, which is very good. Captain Marvel's one of the characters that I have up there for sure.
Yeah.
Gambit is another character that I feel he's able to blow meter. So if they're in a situation where they've already used X Factor, this is true for both Captain Marvel and Gambit, but they don't need to mix you up anymore. They could just kill you through chip damage, and
Yeah,
that
the
is
chip is real.
terrifying.
I'm actually really hot on both Cyclops and Evil Ryu
Hmm.
because I think they get so many excessive tools in their X Factor states.
I agree on both of those. I feel Evil Ryu having multiple safe, good ways to spend meter in neutral means that he just gets to be so happy as an anchor, because uh, a, one of one of the things that empowers an anchor is if they are able to invest resources to get higher value during the X Factor time, whether that's getting chip damage, whether that is being in installs that give them unfair neutral states, any of that. Characters that have those things are just substantially advantaged in X Factor, and Evil Ryu has all of those. He has, if you are either in or out of install and you do the beam and you catch an assist, being able to beam X Factor beam and just kill an assist is so amazing. And just like that threat of him as a dark anchor is really good there. And I feel that's also one of the things that's so threatening about Cyclops is that, like, even though he may be the last character you're fighting, if you summon assist recklessly, he could very quickly evaporate an assist by choosing to
Atomized.
invest X Factor, and that ends up being pretty strong. I think another good thing about both of these characters, which is actually less common among a lot of the top tier characters, is both Evil Ryu and Cyclops have reversals that are real, and they could do something with them. They could go into
Oh,
Super,
yes.
they could go into Air Dash. That they have ways to invest it, and then, or they could go into X Factor. So the characters both having a reversal, having things to Evil Ryu has a lot to do in neutral with meter, and then can win through either mixing people or through chip damage. Oh, I didn't talk about that part yet. One of the things that's super important to X Factor, but is important to characters in general, is do you need to hit the opponent to win? Because some characters, like Hagar, they need to hit the opponent to win. They either need to open them up with a command throw, they need to play footsies and hit with a pipe, they need to get that crouch light in there, something like that, but they need it to hit, and then they go into a combo, and they kill you dead, because they
Yeah,
are
they
effective
can't chip
Hagar
you.
players. But then if you're playing a character like Morrigan, you don't actually ever need to hit them if you want to win. You just need time to go on and to make sure you chip them more than you take chip. And I feel like characters that have that in X Factor have that factor cranked up to 10,000. Like, I think in base game, the biggest example is Dormammu, where if you X Factor before Dormammu and then you need to fight X Factor Dormammu with, like, I don't know, 1.5 characters that are like medium health characters, and he has 4 meters, it's like, oh no, this is spontaneously terrible. Even though
This
he's
is
not
bad.
Virgil. Yeah, even though he's not Virgil or something, he's a class of character where it's like, if you invest X Factor at the wrong time, then you need to deal with him. You're just going to die, most likely.
You are
And
going to very quickly die.
And I feel Captain Marvel benefits in that space, and Evil Ryu benefits in that space as well, where they could win through trying to chip you without needing to interact, and they could also win through mixing you up really, really hard and then winning the game because they hit you. The character in all positions, but I do have her on anchor most often because that's the other thing. Captain Marvel, another thing that is good about being an anchor is making it so when X Factor runs out, you have either a loop or a level 3 that lets you kill. Because Captain Marvel has this amazing level 3 where she does. It's like Dante's in a lot of ways, where it goes the majority of the screen. It's invulnerable, except hers hits super high above her. And being able to have a tool like that as an anchor is incredibly powerful. Because, like, if you land a throw on a 900,000 health character with Captain Marvel, if you immediately X Factor into X Factor 3, do the ground anti-ground beam, and then go into her level 3, it kills the character. You don't need to do a combo, and you have the optimal incoming mix-up on the next character. And characters that have something like that, a way that they could invest resources that is going to beat everything in neutral that they also get to, like, end the game off of, are really, really powerful to have in that anchor slot.
Oh yeah, I believe that.
And it also plays into the other interesting bit about Marvel, where you have 2 resources and they feed into each other in the sense where you can save X Factor every time you spend and kill with Bar, but if you don't have Bar, you can always X Factor, kill with that, and then have Bar for the last character, even if you don't have X Factor. And I think your character in particular, Captain Marvel, does that super well because you can build potentially 4 bars off of an X Factor combo, and that potentially kills the next character no matter what.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the question of, like, do you invest X Factor or do you invest Bar? I think it depends on your character archetype that you are and what you're fighting. if your character has something they could do with bar that is just going to win time, I think that acquiring the bar is worth it. Like if you're like, oh, I X Factored with Virgil, but then I know if they X Factor later, I could Spiral Swords 3 times and that will take out 60% of their X Factor. Then it feels much more okay to have used X Factor but gotten meter. But then if you're in a situation where being able to have the cancel power of X Factor impacts more of the important things in neutral, like you're down to 1 versus 1, or it'll get you down to 1 versus 1, and then you're in the context where they have a bunch of tools that they use in neutral, like a dive kick or something, that if you have X Factor, you could punish it consistently, choosing to invest the meter there instead of the X Factor, but like figuring out in each matchup what you want to use in what context. Oh, and going back to the Dodor and Mamu thing, if they have a character that if if you don't have X Factor, you auto die, that is another thing that can manage the decision making there.
Oh yeah, that's a good question. Does Captain Marvel have any really unique X Factor only confirms?
She yes, but I do not know them because she confirms off of things pretty easily in her default state. She actually has a very satisfying situation when you're in install and X Factor. You get to confirm off of her photon blasters in a bunch of situations, and that is pretty cool. Like you get to use them. So you should be using them anyways because her photon blasters in install are very good. But if you hit at that range that's like 1/3 of the screen away, you often get to just confirm off of them in X. So uh, that is pretty nice. Though I think the biggest thing, this this speaks to the darkness in my heart, but the biggest thing is when you're in X Factor 3 and you're in install, it becomes really hard to jump out of you just mashing Photon Blaster. Like you can lock people down and it will chip them for a huge amount while building you large amounts of meter, and the X Factor counterbalances the health loss from the install so you don't lose health from the install. And then it's very, very challenging to get out of. And if they do not X, it is very likely they will die. And you could get through in during an X Factor 3 duration, maybe like 1.7 million health of chip if you're just like being pretty consistent on what you're throwing out, I think. So I highly advocate for when you're in X thinking about both what you can confirm off of with photon blasters, but also just like when photon blaster has an intended chip stream to just like kill them over time is a more useful way to invest your X Factor than trying to mix them. Because sometimes you don't need to get a hit, you just need to kill them.
Yeah, remove the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so can I, on this topic, can I ask a little final question for y'all? Is there any anchor that you see that character and you're like, because like when I played against Noel, I snapped in that Dormammu because I knew that his Dormammu would cook me. So is there a character that you see on the Clone Engine roster where when they are on the team, you're like, I do not want to deal with the dark version of this character. Frame one snap as soon as I hit their point.
Stars Jill every time. I cannot let her be in the back. She has to come up front. If she's X Factor 3, my life is miserable.
Shadow Lady and Psylocke, because both characters are good on point, but in X Factor becomes scary and also have some of the best assists in the game. So if you force them in when they don't have access to X Factor and another backing assist, it's probably the best time to fight them.
Great answers.
And okay, before we head out, I always want my wonderful member of Couch to offer a self promotion, anything you want, within reason.
Has to
The only
specify
serves
within reason,
account,
please.
Oblivion, the only serves account for Buffbot. I don't think it's to go on the podcast. I'm sorry.
But we'll find a way. I said, just give him time.
I would like to promote the fact that Oblivion posts a lot of really great Marvel themed sketches and just like artwork in the art channel on the Ha Avengers. So if y'all are someone who likes the stuff in the community, going and checking it out is great. Like I really appreciate. Kevin even used the thumbnail for that Night of the Serve bot, and it was the buff bot from Oblivion. So I think if you like beautiful things in the community, check that stuff out. Highly recommended.
Say that, but you don't even promote yourself with your amazing, colorful art. Like, come on. Where's the self plug? Come on, Isisera.
Self plug. Let's see. Please play Gloria. I think that if people play her, I think they will enjoy her and learn things. But I do think that there is a learning curve to getting into her, which is hard. But if you are someone who wants to support the other characters that you love in this game, try her out. I think that she is among the best friends for every character, and because of that, when you play other characters with her, other characters are more fun. So try her out and see if she can do something that makes your character that you enjoy even more fun to play than you already do.
For context, Isisera made Gloria. They are the mother.
Yes.
The mother, in fact.
The mother
Gloria's
modder.
our glorious little baby.
I do love Gloria. I feel that she is so educational. Like, for me, one of the things that I love about Marvel and modded Marvel is being able to model how the other person's thinking and figure out what they're likely to do, because like that player reading part is one of the things I find satisfying in fighting games, and you get to do it in such complex and interesting situations in Marvel. And Gloria is a character that lets you see into spaces that are normally invisible. Like, you can't tell what your opponent's inputs are while they're in hit stun because they don't get any actions out of that. But with Gloria, you have tools like Grounding Hold, which will immediately end hit stun, so you can see what they're doing. Most people have some combination of holding down forward, holding down back, and mashing S because they don't want to get TAC, and being able to just like unlock more of the player understanding through a character than is normally accessible, I think can be pretty cool for folks.
So I can't disagree with that.
And if you come up with cool mix-ups with her, post in one of the combo channels, post it in either Ha Avengers or on the Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom
Or
modding server.
Hashtag, what is it? Isisera. I forgot what your X handle is.
Oh, it's just Isisera. I think I have just my name. I acquired it in time, I believe.
So tag Isisera if you have any cool Gloria combos. And of course, both of you are always welcome back on the digital sofa.
Happy to
The
be on
sofa
this
was
digital
comfortable.
sofa. It was, and I learned a bunch of interesting things. It's cool to think about all the potential synergies for characters like Frank and Taskmaster, who are already cool in base roster, but they didn't really get as much of an opportunity to shine as some other characters, and see if like the support's there to really bring out new things in the beauty that already exists in Marvel.
Just gotta get new tools for Taskmaster. I'm like, oh, look at that, new toys.
And I expect this to be like a bi-weekly podcast with an open sofa policy. So if you wish to join, simply contact me and we can arrange a time with you. But otherwise, I'm hoping that we'll be able to get this out pretty shortly. And weekly content's going to hopefully be consistent, considering there's always something new in the Clone Engine Pallet Engine space. And I hope I can see and or hear you talk about it again. But this is going to be the end of our episode as I click this button.